Hello again, Michael Ware with the Iowa Firearms Coalition. We have Matt Patruno from Grunts. Let me say that properly and make sure I don't mess anything up. Two Grunts Inc. We're going to have a fun conversation here, but first I want to remind everybody, if you're enjoying this, like and subscribe, share it around. If you're not enjoying it, share it around anyway to annoy your friends. That's a good way to go, especially when you got a sense of humor. We have trusted partners on our website. That's easy to navigate to. Just type in Iowa Firearms Coalition and you'll easily navigate there. Check out our trusted partners because these are people who are supporting you and this podcast, our efforts. So buy from the people that are supporting you. Patronize those who are helping you. So those trusted partners are offering IFC members discounts, tangible goods, all kinds of services. You're absolutely crazy if you're not doing that. It's a perk of membership, and we really, really appreciate it. So with that, Matt Patruno, first of all, hello. And
Hello.
What is Two Grunts Inc.? Tell us a little bit about it.
We're a rifle manufacturer. We focus on gas-operated systems that are based on the AR-15 platform. We engineer, design all of our components in-house, manufacture all of our parts. I always tell people I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel with the AR-15. Eugene Stoner nailed it, obviously. There's a reason why this platform stuck around for 6+ decades as the main service rifle for the biggest military in the world. Came out in the early 60s, and I was carrying one in Iraq in the mid 2000s. So that thing's had longevity, and it's still, to me, the best platform in the world for a number of different reasons that I'm sure we'll get into. But what we focus on is material science. So essentially metallurgical practices, alloy choices we make for specific parts and components, how we manufacture that alloy into that part, and then any post-production that we're going to do to enhance that part for that role. Every engineering decision I make is made with the intent of tens and tens and tens of thousands of rounds being put through our rifles. We make hard use service rifles, work guns. People hear those numbers and they think, well, I'll never shoot that, which is true, which is why we do a lifetime warranty on all of our parts and components, because I know most people aren't going to shoot my stuff out. But we do it for, several reasons. One, the biggest one being, in 20 years, 10 years, who knows, 5 years, we don't know where the AR-15 market's going to be in this country, right? I want people to have rifles that are literally made to last a lifetime that you can pass down to your kids and stuff like that. So that's the shortest rifle, the shortest thing I can say about us. I can go on and on and on about us and what I do and why I choose certain things.
It's funny that you mentioned right out of the chute metallurgy as a gunsmith and dealing with metal and being in metallurgy routinely. We make as an assumption as consumers, Matt, that everything's fine. It's all the same today as it was 10 years ago or 50. Are the bolt carrier group, are the bolts any better now than they were then? We assume they're all the same. Maybe a few people tweak a few things here and there, but one is just as good as the other. And what I have found to be the case is that is not true. I mean, here's a perfect example. I was breaking threading material. I was breaking taps about as fast as I could buy them, just enlarging or making the whole sizes larger on Remington 700 actions. People were coming in and say, I want to upgrade these from number 6 to 840 screws, blah, 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 blah. And I would do that. And man, I was having all kinds of trouble. I couldn't figure out why that was. This tooling has worked great for years. It's sharp. It's good. It hasn't, I thought it was good, and it hasn't been a problem. So I started reaching out to some other smiths and like, oh yeah, I sent a few of those actions off just to test, to some laboratories to see what their metallurgy really was. And they are varying wildly in their Rockwell and how hard they are. And some of them are literally twice as hard with this serial number group as this. And I'm like, well, how hard? Well, we're talking rebar hard. So, I mean, we're not doing these things to the level of quality and consistency that we used to. And people are sourcing things, Matt, from all over the place. I mean, I have people that come in here that have builds that they want done, and they hand me some of the parts. And it's obvious that they picked them up off eBay or whatever else, and they don't have any idea what these parts are, their quality, or certainly their consistency. So when you led with metallurgy, it piqued my interest. Were you seeing that? or why was this an initial focus for you?
Like quick background on me, just I at 18 out of high school joined the Marine Corps infantry, deployed. I was in for 6 years, deployed a few times. I'm an OIF veteran, became a cop after that. I'm only saying all this just to get to where you're going. I quit being a cop. I was a Chicago police officer for 8 years. I quit that in 2021. I joined a machinist union where I live now in Southwest Michigan. Did the journeyman program, was working in machine shops, building rifles for myself and friends and family. I was still shooting all the time. And I started to realize, the cost of parts is a lot cheaper than people think. B, the quality of parts really depends on not just like you could have the most mil spec rifle, everything's fitting fine, QC is all good, but if the alloys at the forge and the precursors at the forge are garbage to begin with, that's when you start to see issues down the road. So I started to see issues with, just quality of metals coming out. Like you said, varying degrees of hardness. I would be threading I'd get some receivers that I had to thread it myself to get a pistol screw in or tap it myself, and QC was going down. And then like a really good service rifle in this country, I consider Geisley a really good rifle, like his Super Duty ones. I consider KAC very good rifles. I consider LMT very good rifles. These are service rifles that the DoD and other militaries use. And to get one of these rifles of that quality, you're going to have to spend $4 or $5 grand. And I just didn't really see the connection between that price and what I was doing in the shops, making these parts. So I just decided, hey, I could probably do this myself. Considering my machinist background, I went to Western Michigan. I did like an independent study there. They were kind enough to let me kind of pick and choose engineering, designing different metallurgical classes in their engineering department. So I did that, and started this because of that. And a big reason why these companies have to charge $4 or $5 grand, it's not really greed. It's more they have such a high demand from the DoD and other militaries, and those are the contracts, and that's the money that's actually paying the bills and paying their machinists and paying their employees salaries, and lots of families depend on it. So in order to service that and make sure that you're getting the correct price for that, you have to, the DoD is always going to get the lowest price. So if you want to get $1,500, $1,800 a rifle from the DoD, well, you're going to have a minimum advertised price in the US of like $4 or $5 grand in order for that bulk pricing tier system to kind of meet in the middle. And then also just demand, man. Like if these companies were providing the rifles that they are capable of making at prices that were accessible to a lot of people, the demand would be insane. They wouldn't be able to meet both, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Well, it does. You're basically saying, listen, I need to be able to cut through the junk and provide a quality apparatus at a price that won't break the bank.
Yeah.
Well, that means that you have to start at the beginning with the right stuff in order to get the end result where you need it. And I don't think that many people look at it there, that they look at it and say, well, if I source this here and this there and this from here, this is an amalgamation that comes into a whole package when I assemble it or do a few things, and out the door I go. And there's nothing wrong with that. That can work, especially with well-chosen parts. But if you're not doing these things yourself, there's always a question of the quality and the consistency. And frankly, with the highs and lows that we have seen in the last 10-ish years, basically since Sandy Hook, people's quality is a legitimate concern. It really is. You may think that you're getting quality and you may not be.
Well, and COVID, that rush, that push, with every, a lot of companies expanded so vastly after COVID and during it because sales were so high. They were, I don't know if they thought the demand was going to stay there or if they were just taking advantage of outside investment and things like that. But they all expanded, companies that were really well known for parts. And that's what I was, saying when I was building weapons, companies that I was using, I started to see the quality of their parts kind of go down and down in terms of just QC, man. Simple stuff like you're saying, like sending different actions in and being like, well, why is this HRC 75 and this one's 55 for the same exact part? You know what I mean? Like that's a big difference in hardness. And that's just because when you scale production like that at such a large volume, if you don't do it the right way, and if you're not building it kind of slowly, if you're kind of going from like, hey, I'm making 1,000, now I'm making 10,000, and that's in a year, like you're gonna have issues just regardless. Manufacturing, and I was talking, I won't say his name. He's one of the guys who kind of started up the consumer AR market in the early 90s. He sold his company 15 years ago. I had the opportunity to talk to him at the NRA show a few weeks ago for about an hour, and he was telling me he's still involved in the industry and all this stuff, and I think he's on the NRA board and stuff. But he was a machinist, right? And he started a rifle company. Mark LaRue was a machinist. He started a rifle company. Bill Geisley was a machinist. He started a rifle company, right? The companies being started in the last 10 years, I would say, they're shooters who are starting manufacturing companies. They don't have manufacturing experience. Manufacture, like they're just parts at the end of the day, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can walk into a machine shop with anything and be like, can you make this? A good machine shop's just going to say, yeah, obviously I can make it. Give me the CAD, give me your 3D model and what you want, and I'll get it made. Because they're just parts at the end of the day. And when you have, so our mindset is we're looking at this as a manufacturer and an engineering firm, not as a rifle firm, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I obviously have the experience with rifles professionally. I've been carrying a gun professionally since I was 18 years old. So I know what you need in order to meet those demands of like combat and firefights and all these things that these tools are used for, defense purposes, all these things, while at the same time looking at it as a manufacturer, as a machinist. How can I make the best part? I look for something called thermal stability. Thermal stability is just the ability for alloys, when they heat up, they expand, they always come back down to that original forge setting. That forge setting is going to be whatever shape I machine that part into. Yep. Well, eventually that alloy gets so stressed out, it can never return back to that shape. And now it's just going to be stuck in that open position. That's when you get problems. You can get accuracy degradation with a barrel. You can start seeing, lug shear on bolts. You can start seeing like gas key fitments, just different issues, right, that are going to arise. So what we look for are alloys that are going to be best suited for these roles, and then post-production, how we can enhance that alloy even further. Like I'm not a fan of stainless steel alloy barrels for this reason. Stainless steel alloy barrels, I would say like 75% of the market uses that right now. The reason they do is just it's stainless steel is a very hard alloy, right? And it does have properties suited for firearms. So like abrasion, heat, and pressure, those are the three big things that we worry about in terms of part wear. But untreated stainless steel, like 5,000-6,000 rounds before accuracy degradation starts, what's it called? You can't really nitride stainless steel. There's a few companies who do. You can do it, but it's really tough to get right. So what most companies do is they chrome line it because they're going to get like another 4,000 or 5,000 rounds, let's say, out of that rifle. Well, when you're chrome lining, I hate chrome lining. That's the mil spec. That's what they had available in the 50s and 60s in terms of like adding corrosion, heat, and abrasion resistance to their barrels. Well, when you're chrome lining, you're plating, so you're adding a layer of material over that barrel now. So the reason they like stainless steel alloys and what they'll tell their customers is it's softer, it's more malleable, it's easier to machine. I can get a deeper rifling. You're going to have a more accurate round. This is true. You will have a more accurate round. You will have deeper rifling. The issue is you have to either chrome plate it or not treat it at all. And if you chrome plate it, you're adding material over that rifling now. So that deeper rifling just got filled with chrome. So I can have just as inaccurate of a barrel because I nitride everything instead of chrome lining. I'm not adding material. I'm imbuing nitride into my alloys because of the alloy choices that we make. And like you were saying, like people just assume like everything's good enough, and mil spec is good enough. The military has super high demands. I hate when people are like, well, this is the military's version of this, so it's garbage. No, it's not garbage. Like I run mil spec packs for like all my stuff, like any fieldcraft stuff. I'm still buying just like surplus GI stuff because it's really good gear. It can meet the demands. The issue is the military is super slow to advance with manufacturing tech. Like nitride in the last 10, 15 years has vastly outpaced chrome lining in terms of like abrasion, heat, and corrosion resistant properties. But the military still is mil spec chrome line, so everyone's just like, well, we'll just chrome line everything still. It's not the best option. The DoD, like I said, it's a very, it's such a bureaucratic organization. It's tough for them to adapt, I guess, with the times.
Yes.
And as machining too, and like manufacturing, like we're able to cut harder and harder materials, alloys that we couldn't cut in machine 50 years ago, 20 years ago, we can do now, right? And metal 3D printing is constantly advancing and all of these things. Like we're gonna, be able to get these better alloys and better use cases for these parts with technology. And it's good to have a firearms company that's kind of moving with that progression within manufacturing.
Well, titanium is a great example. We didn't used to see that in firearm circles because machining circles didn't want to use it. They're like, yeah titanium has tremendous properties. It's got great qualities. And oh, by the way, it's a real bear to machine, and it's costly to source. It's costly to work with, and I got to buy real expensive tooling to do this. And so
the tooling's what gets you, man, in machining. Like tooling's not cheap.
No, it's very expensive. But now you and I see it. There's titanium in a lot of places because the process and the processes for working with these materials is better, is easier, is more common. So it's not such a chore to work with this stuff anymore. And titanium has great properties. Now, to go back to something, I want to make sure that it's not necessarily a correction, but it's some context. I'm not suggesting that everything in the firearm world has to be super hard in order for it to work well. Super hard properties sometimes come with being brittle, and you may not want that. So I'm not advocating hard or soft. So I don't want people to take that away from this conversation.
Yeah, I'm just talking in general terms right now. Like, yeah, obviously, like, I'm not going to, make a part that's so hard that it's going to shatter on someone because it's now brittle. There's various ways that you can test that. And, I'm constantly messing around at the forge with stuff we do at the forge, and then machining wise, and then post-production. And, I want to see how far can I push this before I do hit that threshold, right?
I can remember. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I read a ton of white papers, either from like drilling companies, various DoD publications, and there's tons of data and information out there about the advancements of manufacturing and machining and what they're starting to see, especially in the oil and drilling, like with fracking.
Oh yeah.
Fracking, they're dealing with the same things we do: heat, pressure, and corrosion. And they're they're backed by these mega oil companies, so they have trillions of dollars of capital at their disposal to constantly be upgrading and kind of changing the way parts are made in the U.S., I guess.
It's funny that you mention it like that because I was visiting on Warrior Wednesday with Nathan Mitchell from Mitchell Defense, and his background was oil and gas.
Yeah.
And he took some of those things and said, listen, I think if we use some of these materials, some of these process, and some of these outcomes, we look at these differently from the beginning. I think I can do some of these things better or higher quality with much more longevity and much more consistency. And that was the basis in which he started his company. And it sounds like you're in a very similar position. Hey, what can we do with better things rather than I want to build this thing together from pieces outsourced and sell it. So I think it's an important understanding of how somebody arranges their company and why they arrange their company.
Yeah, and there's a ton of companies who are just like buying bulk. There's a lot of machine shops out there, or companies, I guess, who provide the parts for the small arms world. So a lot of companies will just white label it, and that's their part. They're not engineering it for their own system. They're not doing the R&D behind it. They might test it and make sure it's working and all that, but they're not the ones actually designing and implementing that part with a purpose. They're just buying parts and putting a gun together. And it's the same thing with building. I used to be a builder, and I would tell people to just build a gun. It's just as good, and you can get a better rifle. I don't think that to be the case anymore. And I could be biased now because I do run a rifle manufacturing company, but I look at the system as like a cohesive unit. Yeah, it's a bunch of parts and components that are put together. But we engineer every part and component to work together in like a cohesive matter or cohesive way. And, you know, things like gas tuning, like, you know, how big is your gas port, your buffer systems, what kind, like how heavy is your bolt system? All of these things matter, and they, in the long run, will either lead to failures or will lead to success. And if you're not considering every single aspect of your parts when you're deciding to build a rifle, like, well, how big is this gas port? Okay, well, what does this gas port with this gas system length need in terms of a buffer system to reliably work? You know, I overgas my guns. I do that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
One, I run super heavy buffers, so I'm not worried about recoil or anything like that. And two, I know my parts are engineered and manufactured to handle the gas wear that's going to happen to it without damaging or ruining what we want to do in terms of the tens and tens and tens of thousands of rounds. The reason I want more gas going into my system is there's a lot of ammo out there, man. Especially when you're buying bulk 5.56 in the civilian market in the US, there's a ton of ammo out there. Excuse my language. Like, it's you know, I've seen same manufacturer, same exact round. A year later, my velocity was 2,800. Now I'm at 2,650 with the same exact round, right? Like, they nerfed the round for whatever reason for that lot. I'd rather have more gas coming into my system so I can shoot whatever I can pick up, right? We call the rifle the SHTF 15. Like, SHTF is just an internet term to hit the fan. These rifles are built for, you know, I don't want to say like doomsday scenarios, but they're built for, hey, if you can't go and find parts and source parts, you're going to be able to at least understand that, hey, my rifle is going to be, it's built for the long haul. Like, it's going to be okay. You know, I keep hearing like, well, you know, there's a ton of junk companies out there, you know, in the AR market. I'm sure you've seen it being a gunsmith. It's like a race in the bot. It's a race to the bottom in terms of quality right now. And like, yeah, that gun may be cool, man, for 2,000 or 3,000 rounds, but start talking to me when you're hitting that 5,000 round mark, that 10,000 round mark. I promise you that rifle is not going to function the way it did when you first got it.
Well, that's always the case. I shouldn't say always the case across the board, but it's always the case with certain genres of weapons, especially in the AR platform. And the reason, a couple of quick examples would be, it hasn't been that many years ago, there were some popular brands that have mostly gone by the wayside now. But they were sourcing stainless steel bull barrels from X source and B source and whatever else. And they would go out into a field of prairie dogs, shoot coyotes, whatever it is these guys were doing, and they would be very accurate. And so, and then after 1,000 or 2,000 rounds, they'd come to me like, this thing doesn't shoot. I'm like, well, this barrel is made of a material that's very easy to machine, and it does a great job. The chambers are very nice, and the lands and grooves are very consistent when they're done. But because of the relative ease of machining came some softness associated with this barrel. So it does a bang up job out of the chute, and it's great. But after you actually use it a while, now some of these things start to wear significantly. And after some time, especially with repeated use and some heat buildup, these things begin to fall apart. And so you'd stick a bore scope down there and show them. And I'm like, look at the throat of this barrel. And then we'll move forward just a few inches. This looks like a retread off a semi tire. It's not supposed to look like an alligator's back after 12 or 1,500 rounds. It should look like this, you know, at a zero. Maybe you should hit 10,000 rounds or something, maybe with this. And so I'm like, and they're like, what do you do? I'm like, put a new stick on it. I mean, it's not going to get any better from here. It only continues to degrade. Or, you know, like when we're talking about BCG, bolt carrier group, there's a gas key. Okay. So for the layman out there, it's this little snorkel sticking off the top of there. A lot of people don't properly torque those two little cap screws that hold it on to begin with. And if they do, they don't stake it and dimple in the key so that it holds the screw from backing out sufficiently. And half the time when they come in here, Matt, guys like, oh, this thing short cycles every now and then. It's one of the first things that I look at because it's often loose or you know,
it's not staked down. Yeah, it's leaking.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a lot of things like this that really require not a ton of extra effort or work, but they require some thinking and some proactivity, and you can make a better rifle. And I'm telling you, a lot of people just skip it. They don't
And
bother
that's
with it.
why, like for our gas key fasteners, I only use M Guns OCKS screws. There's a reason why. That's the best gas key fastener in the world right now. It has those rivets. He
Mhm.
machines the rivets on top of the fastener where the torque head is, um, so that when you do stake it, like every single rivet is locked into there.
Mhm.
It's never gonna back out. Uh, and I'm lucky that he lives like literally 3 towns over from me.
There's a guy up in your neighborhood that was building some stuff to help us some of these things years ago. I I hope I don't butcher this. Does Ned Christensen at Michigans sound right?
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. It's M Guns.
Okay, no joke.
Yeah,
Okay, all right. Well, he was way ahead of people on this
yeah,
stuff, and I bought some tooling from him years ago, and I'm
yeah.
still
Ned's the man.
he built it so well.
Yeah, Ned's the man.
My throat reamer hasn't even wore out, and I don't know, dude. I may have used it on two and a
I
half,
mean,
maybe.
he's a tool maker. You know, I'm fortunate that I live in an area. We have the most machine shops like in a per capita or whatever per square mile in the country. You know, it's still automotive, aerospace, and defense out here in Michigan, and we have tons of machinists. Like my favorite thing is talking to these old machinists, man. They're a dying breed at this point. You know, they're all starting to go, and the thing about being a machinist is like you're gonna get cancer or something just breathing in these fumes all the time. So they're really starting to go now. But these old guys, man, they're just full of knowledge, man. And you know, I love every time I gotta go pick up screws from Ned, I go out to lunch with Ned, chew his ear off for 2 hours because he has so much information, just you know, not just about firearms, but just about tooling and machining and all of these things. I love talking to guys like that, man.
Oh, they're a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah,
I always enjoy that. I remember years ago, I haven't spoke with him in a long time. I probably should just call him up just to say hi and thank him for his help. But I remember early on, I was doing a lot of stuff with 6.5 Grendel, and somehow I don't remember exactly what happened, but I ended up getting a call from or was prompted to call Bill Alexander, and I thought, this these guys have broken into the big time. He's not going to have much time for me, and I shouldn't expect much. And the reality was, he gave me all the time in the world. He was a very verbose man, and and I enjoyed our visits. And I mean, he'd offer you the keys to the kingdom. He was very, very helpful. And so there were some guys out there over the years that have been absolutely super stellar in those ways, and I'm super thankful for it because there's some of these guys are really, really good at their craft.
yeah. Like we use Springco for our buffer springs. I use Springco for our gas rings, our extractor spring, our retain fire pin retaining pin, which is technically a spring. Uh, I'm sure there's something else I'm missing, but I love Springco. I think they make the best springs in the country for firearms. But they're a huge company, right? They service,
Mhm.
they make a lot of money. Dude, I can call the owner and he'll give me an hour of his time on the phone.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of companies that I like to do business with, you know. You can never be so big that you don't have, you know, especially if you're passionate about what you do, man. If you are passionate about what you do, um, you know, if someone calls you for 5 minutes, you know, it could quickly become an hour.
Mhm.
And that's how it is with us. I have guys call me with questions all the time, and you know, once you get me going, I won't stop.
You keep saying us. Who's the other person in us?
My brother, Two Grunts, he co-founded it with me. We have a couple of guys who are still small, help out and stuff. But we named it Two Grunts. He was an 0311 in the Marine Corps as well. I served from 07 to 13. He got in literally right after I got out. Like 3 weeks after I got out, he was in boot camp, which was pretty funny. Probably not funny for my parents, but he served for I think 4 years. He did active.
Okay, so that's Andrew. Am I right about that?
Yeah, Andrew Patruno. Yep, that's my
Okay.
brother. And yeah, I mean, he does a lot of our like digital stuff, anything to do with the website marketing. That's what he does for his own living right now while we're
Good.
trying to get this thing off the ground.
So is he the good brother when your folks look at you between the two of you, or is he not as good?
I mean, I'm three brothers. I'm one of five. I have two other brothers. I would say, yeah, he's definitely the good one of us
Okay,
three
so
for sure.
like for example, I have a brother and a sister, both younger than me, and I assure you, I make jokes about it, but I'm like, Mom, before I had a little brother here and I was all by myself, I still don't think I was the favorite kid, you know, and we laugh about it. So I know that my mother and sister probably, if put in the pros and cons column, I'm sure that they would rate a little higher than me. Now, granted, moms and dads don't love kids better than other kids,
No, for sure. You
but
definitely
I
don't.
always make jokes that I am not the favored child. So I didn't know where you were in
I
terms
would
of.
say girls at being a father and having boys and girls, one boy, one girl. I would say the girls are probably. I had to, they're just nicer. They're a little easier to deal with. I've got a 4-year-old son, and he's, he runs me ragged for sure.
Yeah, that's part of it. And how old's the daughter?
She's 18 months.
Okay, all right. Well,
So she's
give them about 14 or 15 years, and then we'll see if they're still quite as nice. My daughter's doing a pretty good job, but every now and then there's some headbutting. But
I'm
honest
hoping
to
that's
goodness,
just between the wife and the daughter, not me.
oh no,
But you got
it'll be part of it. But I would say, given your background and who you appear to be, whatever else, you don't want a passive kid, a boy or a girl anyway. So
no,
there's room for that. But I can appreciate my daughter being a little headstrong and resisting authority from time to time. I got no
I'd
issue.
rather have that for sure, 100%. But
All right.
back to
So,
what? But yeah, I mean, ask a question, man.
well, okay. So, let me ask you something a little bit more philosophical. We got an idea of what you wanted to do and why, what was important to you in terms of background, and what gave context for why do Two Grunts Inc. even exists. But what was something that you'd share with us that was far harder than you assumed it would be? And then, and conversely, what was something that was far easier than you thought it was going to be in this process of building a company and everything associated with it? I'm curious about those two things.
I mean, it's far harder, and we're still dealing with it. It's just getting our name out there, man. It's tough without $1 million marketing budget for anyone to even know who you are. And it's tough to differentiate yourself in the AR market because it's so crowded and there's so many companies out there, and there's a ton of companies doing good work. So I would say, yeah, the hard part is kind of not only reaching people to tell us like we're a company who makes rifles, but to how to explain in a short manner why we're different and why we think you should come with us. We do a lifetime warranty on all of our parts. I've run tens and tens and tens of thousands of rounds through these guns. It's tough to kind of convey that, I guess, in a short manner, in a marketing way. And the easy part would be, probably just due to my like manufacturing machining background. I thought it would have been a little harder to scale, I guess, and to get to a point like to set up our manufacturing line, essentially to set up our supply chain. That was a lot easier than I thought. And I'm lucky that I tell people every machine shop that I work with, because I engineer and design everything. I do my own CADs, I do my own specs, I do all of that. I don't want to run a machine shop. I want to run a rifle company. I've worked in machine shops. I know what goes into that. So I don't machine anything myself. I have like 4 partner shops that I work with who make my parts. I'm fortunate that me having this background, either I know these guys personally just through my own experience, or I had a couple, like an old boss hook me up with a couple of his buddies who were already working in the small arms world, but I'm their smallest customer by millions and millions of dollars. They only work with me because of our personal relationship that we have. So I would just say the easier part was, I thought it would be a lot harder, I guess, to find the shops. It was kind of, I lucked out with like everyone I reached out to. It was like, once they kind of heard my background, what we're trying to do, they're like, yeah, I'll work with you, man. It's cool.
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Sometimes you need to catch a break, dude.
Yeah, man. That's definitely a break I caught. I always say, I know you're very Christian and I'm a Catholic, like cradle Catholic. And, when you ask God for strength, he's going to give you something to be strong about. He's going to give you problems. You ask him for wisdom, he's going to give you stuff to solve. So, I pray and, I would love for this company to be successful. I want to get rifles that are made not just here in the US, but made for the purpose of these tools, what they're actually designed for and what they're intended for in terms of defense and all of these things, and self-autonomy and all of that that goes with being a firearm owner. and being an American. And I wanted to make parts that were up to the standard that I think America should be held to in terms of manufacturing.
You know, we've got a whole bunch of trusted partners that are Iowa companies that you should feel free to, and I'm saying this right here as we record it, and you're welcome to refer back to it, but that you should call those people up and say, hey, Michael and IFC said that maybe I should give you a quick ring, because I can think off the top of my head. I mean, you've got Elliot over at the Lead Farm by the Quad Cities, Battlehawk Armory in the Des Moines area, Black Flag
I've heard of Battlehawk.
Yep. Black Flag Arsenal over in the Des Moines area. You've got Ernie at CVO Outfitters up in Cedar Rapids. There's a list of these partners that maybe you could make arrangements to get some rifles down there, because if they see the value of them as business owners, they can help sell them to their customers and be a force multiplier in your success. I think it would be worth you tripping down through our list of trusted partners to find people that you may want to liaise with directly. And you're welcome to trade on IFC or my name personally.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely leverage this call for that. And like, dude, I mean, you know, it's been slow. It's been a grind. We came out with this rifle. I think I established the company in 21 when we moved out here, and was working in machine shops, getting all that done, my formal education and stuff. And then, you know, I didn't come out with this rifle till summer of 24. So this is like our third year, I guess, coming up. And it's, you know, it's been a struggle. And, you know, there's tons of guys who buy our guns and run, and they, you know, I've never gotten negative feedback. Never had someone upset with a purchase from us. I know the rifles are good. It's just a matter of getting that out there, I guess, man. It's tough. It's not easy.
Well, it's you're describing a business model not dissimilar from my own, in that you're trying to sell on quality rather than on quantity or price. And that's a very good thing to do if you can get your name out there and get.
And the thing, yeah, and along with that, man, like I'm sure you know, like all these big distributors of firearms who every gun store in America really goes and gets all their stuff from, like I've had meetings with them, and you know, all they want is UPCs, and they just want like a catalog. And I'm like, hey man, I make like one rifle, and it's a really great rifle. It's a GPR, general purpose rifle. I have different configurations and whatnot, but that's not what we do, man, and that's not what I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in putting out a product that I can stand behind and be proud of. That's, you know, I'm fortunate and blessed enough that like if this company was to fold tomorrow, me and my family are going to be okay, right? So the money's not the motivating factor for me. The motivating factor for me is I love manufacturing. I love machining. I love metallurgy. I spend my days just reading white papers and my nights because I'm actually interested in this stuff. And like just given my background, you know, I want every American. I wish more guys my age, especially like the millennial generation that I'm in, man. Half these guys are so. I don't want to say like a negative thing, but you know, they've been misled in terms of firearms and self-autonomy and all these things. And I think it's really important that people start to take this stuff seriously and start to take the protection of their family seriously. Like, you know, I could never, as a father, be like, yeah, I'm going to rely on calling 911 if my family's in danger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to rely on anyone else except for myself, right? And these are the types of lessons and stuff I want to pass on to my kids. And I'm talking about this just because like that's why we do what we do, because we make rifles that are 100%, you know, we know like if you're using it to train all the time, it's not going to matter when you actually do need to use it in like a real life scenario where like lives are on the line. You know, we've done numerous, like, you know, I always say, like, you can tell a good AR, like, leave it out overnight in a Michigan winter. If you can pick it up and rip a mag, that's a good AR, right? There's a lot of companies out there who are just, you know, there's three types of firearms companies in the country right now. There's marketing firms who sell firearms, there's financial firms who sell firearms, and there's gun companies, right? Made up of guys. You really got to kind of pick and choose and really research who you're buying from.
I don't disagree with that a bit. And unfortunately, if there are financial firms they often have backing to circulate their product, and the marketing people do that by trade.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not going to say who because I don't want to get sued by this guy, and he's known for it. But the biggest company in the country who makes every firearm, they're known for cheap products. Um, he's a financial guy, man. He's a banker. You know,
yeah,
there, and I know, being in the industry and going to these trade shows and talking to people, dude, half the guys I meet who run these companies, their background's investment banking. You know what I mean? Yeah, they
yeah,
might be a veteran but it's just like, dude, I'm very Ron Paul, and the Fed type of guy. And I just don't trust those types of people who their thought process is engineering profit, not engineering good products,
it makes a
Uh,
difference, and you
yeah.
can tell the influences. And I'm not saying that there isn't a niche in the market or there isn't a place for those companies and those products, but it isn't for everyone, and I think that that's a universal truth.
Yeah, man, we make hard use work guns. They're service rifles. They're backed for life for a reason. Um, they're accurate. They're reliable. Like I said, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel with the AR-15. All I'm trying to do is apply modern manufacturing practice and material science and metallurgy to every single part and component so I can get the best part and component for that role.
Well, that's easy
And
enough.
yeah, it's easy enough.
You'd think, well, what you said could be a universal statement, but man alive, can it be
Well,
hard to?
this year I've come to the realization, and I'm really good at making guns. I'm not good at selling them. You know.
Yeah, maybe getting them in a few other places will help with that. I don't know,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's worth considering because when a lot of people, okay, so when dealers, as you know, hop on, they log into their wholesaler. A lot of times they will filter by, of course, availability and price.
Hmm.
Filtering by quality or content or oftentimes features. And to be honest with you, most of the wholesalers don't even offer those categories to search by. So it ought to take
I
a little bit.
We start at 1,500. You could build up to like 2 grand in our rifles. I've had guys who we've hired or consulted with to try to get sales going for us be like, hey, you guys, you're in a weird place where like you're above the low tier. You're not priced at like that 3,000 range, even though, I think my rifle is a $3,000 or $4,000 rifle in this country. And they're like, you need to charge more because like the price you're charging now is like a psychology barrier to customers. And I'm like, why? I don't need to charge more though, because I know I have our margins. I have everything set up. I know my model. I know how much it costs me to make a rifle, how much time it takes, and all this stuff. I don't need to charge more just because I'll get more sales this way somehow because people are going to think the quality is better. It's more about educating people about what it is that's out there and what it is they should be looking for.
Well, I'm glad. I can understand that. I can respond to that. And like I said, I mean, there are different strokes for different folks, but it should be it should be self-evident to a customer if they're picking up something of yours and they're picking it up for what you and I would say is a very reasonable price, and they go out and use it like, man, this thing's pretty smooth. I'm just not having problems with it. I keep putting crap ammo through it because my buddy showed up for a range session
Yeah.
with steel cased, whatever it is, and it runs it through just like it does federal gold medal match. I'm seeing some things here that give me a great deal of confidence. And the reality is, Matt, as you know, and I tell people this, whether they're buying something to spare and save lives, or whether they're going to competition, or they're going to shoot coyotes, prairie dogs, or maybe the family comes over at Thanksgiving and they run out every year in the cold and they run 2 30-round mags through it before they get cold and come back in. Maybe that's it. It doesn't matter. What I need from them is confidence. I need for them to have confidence in what they're using. And if they don't have confidence in their weapon, everything else doesn't matter anymore. So if you build something or alter something or whatever it is that you're doing in life, allow somebody to use your product with confidence in it, that's foundational to success.
And the only way to get confidence, at least for me, is I have to do it over and over and over again. I need reps to build that confidence. And it's the same thing with like I want I think everyone should be shooting like 2,000-3,000 minimum rounds a year, um, and you shouldn't be worried about like, well, I spent so much money on this, and if I do that, I'm gonna have to replace parts, and I already, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't. That should never be in that equation of if I'm gonna train or not with this specific thing. And talking about competition, like, I think I'm not a competition shooter at all. Those guys are very talented and they're very good at what they do, but their motivating factor is so different than what you should be looking for in like a work gun. They're chasing centimeters to try to get on that podium. They're gonna make decisions that are beneficial to them in that moment for that use, but not something I would say is beneficial for um, like a hard use combat rifle, service rifle. And that's just like metallurgical stuff. And, like talking about accuracy, and, there's a way to like mechanically stack accuracy to get a better round. And like all you're trying to do is increase the odds of that round having the best chance to be the most accurate that it can with every shot fired.
Sure.
And you could do like, stainless steel would be one of those things that you're chasing, right? Like, well, I can get a more accurate round that way. Or, the fitment of the barrel to the upper receiver. Like, I see a lot of companies and guys who are really big into thermal fitting. I'm not big into thermal fitting because from the outset, like from an engineering standpoint, that's an interference fit. Interference fits cause hoop stress that can lead to catastrophic failures. And, an upper receiver is machined to a 1-inch diameter, inner diameter, right? And that's for the barrel extension to slip in. And we have a snug fit, right? Like I got to take a rubber mallet and kind of pop it in there to get it all the way in, so it's snug. But a lot of guys, they'll machine the upper receiver to be like, let's say like 5 micrometers, 5 thousandths of an inch, too tight. So you literally have to heat that alloy up now, because like we talked about, when alloys heat up, they expand that inner diameter so you can slip it in. And then when it cools, the idea is that it's going to have this like really tight mechanical fit around it. But you have now a piece of aluminum that it's forged setting. It was machined to a smaller diameter than a steel barrel extension. So now that steel barrel extension is fighting the wall of that aluminum in a cold state constantly. That's an interference fit. And that's what I talked about in terms of like engineering wise, that's not a good thing. You don't want interference fits with parts.
Well, especially with alloys of dissimilar properties. If you had aluminum and aluminum or steel and steel, maybe.
Yeah. And that's what I mean for sure. Like, dude, steel versus aluminum, man. Like, steel's gonna win. Go take a steel bar and whack it against an aluminum bar and do versus and tell me what does more damage. And same thing with like, 7075 T6. T6 is temper 6. That's the forge tempering, the heat treatment that it gets. Aluminum does not have a high threshold of like the austenite phase and these different phases of heat treatment. Like, it has a super low degree threshold where you're risking changing the original heat treatment because you're kind of doing a second heat treatment now to it. So the properties that you got introduced at the forge that you need for 7075 T6 that you want for this specific component, you're risking altering it at like 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not hot. Now there's companies out there who thermal fit in their factories and their shops, and I'm sure a lot of them have a purpose-built oven that gets to a very specific degree and it's super controlled and all these things. But these guys at home who have a gun from Harbor Freight that's heating up to 700 degrees, and you know what I mean? Like, you're just risking changing that heat treatment, which to me is something that I would never ever introduce in one of my systems or one of my rifles. And secondly, like, to this thermal fit argument or whatever, aluminum has higher thermal conductivity than steel, so it's gonna heat up faster. It's gonna expand faster than aluminum. So that fit that you had to start, like 5-10 rounds in, it's gone because that aluminum's already heated up so much that the outer diameter is not going to be having that crunch fit, that interference fit on that steel extension. So like, there's no point to it in an engineering sense.
Have you paid? Go ahead.
I was just to say the advantage you were trying to strive for with this mechanical accuracy goes out the window when it actually is needed, which is under fire.
Have you paid any attention to the upper receiver designs and
The monolithic ones,
no, well, not necessarily. Spur, that's a good example. And the way that they're affixing barrels into ARs now. Have you paid any attention to that?
no, I've seen like Voltor, I think LMT has one. I'm sure there's other companies with this like monolithic upper
Yeah.
where the upper and the rail are one. But to me, like with that, still, it's like what gives your gun accuracy is a mechanical accuracy. So like the chambering you choose, the rifling, the type of rifling that you're like how you're manufacturing that rifling, the alloys, obviously those things. But like the barrel nut plays a really key role in this because that's what's gonna, that's what's holding your barrel like into the receiver, right? So if you have like a well engineered, well designed barrel nut, you're going to have that mechanical accuracy you're looking for. And like what I'm talking about with these monolithic uppers, like the way they're securing the barrel nut, like the barrel nut is, as you know, like a piece of steel. It goes over the barrel extension and it slips on the threading of that receiver. And you're torquing it down like 40, 45 foot-pounds. That's a ton of torque, man. That's a really tight fit. It's nice.
Yeah.
With these monolithic new uppers, that like the way that I'm seeing them secure the barrel, it has me questioning how tight that barrel is actually going to be in there. And we're talking about, like, are these two little screws that you can only put about 15, 20 pounds of pressure on them to torque to set that barrel in there and pin it in there? 15, 20 pounds after 5, 10,000 rounds, is that going to walk back on you? Things like that. So I've seen them. I know what you're talking about. That's my concern with them. I haven't shot them enough to really give you the right answer, I guess.
You need to look into just for the purposes of
what was the thing you said? Spur,
SPUHR. Yeah, it's a really okay. So it's a really interesting design concept. Much beefier, far more threads. And so people are like, why do we need to go to all this expense if it's done it so well for so long other ways? And I'm like, well, there may be many applications where that doesn't seem necessary. If you're running a little 10.5-inch SBR or pistol with a pencil barrel and you're not going to hang a can off of it and you're only going to shoot, a short range, maybe let's define that as 200 yards and in, maybe you don't need something like that, especially if you're not going to run it hard or a lot, right? But for example, what I mentioned earlier, talking to Bill Alexander, I was putting together guns that had 26 and 28-inch bull barrels in an AR-15, and I'm telling you definitively, that little bit of thread that you get in an A3 upper receiver was never designed to have 5 pounds of hanging.
No, for sure. Yeah, for stuff like that, it makes sense. And there's ways you could engineer the handguard the way it's interfacing with that barrel nut, where it's like acting as a brace. But you're talking about like a 28-inch barrel. I mean,
yeah.
And like we do. I only do 14.5. I don't know if I'll ever sell an SBR. It's not that I care about the NFA at all. It's more I care about making my rifles the most effective that they can be and maximizing the potential of it. 5.56 is only an effective round because of the velocity that's coming out of that gun.
Yeah.
It's a 22 that's necked up. Once you drop that velocity, you're impacting the actual effectiveness of this round. So to me, I don't. I wouldn't want to be shooting like a 62 or 77 grain 5.56 round out of anything shorter than 14.5 because I know that the terminal ballistics on target are just not going to be catastrophic enough to get the intent that I want.
Yeah, I understand. No, I mean, when people come in and they'll be like, what do I need for accuracy? I'm like, well, I'm primarily concerned with the bolt in the barrel and also the fire control because that's going to lend itself to you using it consistently. But oh, by the way, I think we need to pay special attention to the barrel attachment. So that comes with the handguard. So let's choose a handguard, not only for fit and function, and of course there's some appearance there too, but I want a really good, consistent way of affixing this barrel and keeping it in the upper receiver.
Yeah, and like when we designed a handguard and made a handguard and chose a handguard, I was worried about something called flex in that handguard. I run IR aiming devices at night. You know, we make work guns for guys who are running the gear that they need. And flex is just when you're like in the prone barricading, you're in full kit. If you're putting weight on that rifle, you can shift the point of aim, point of impact by the flex of that rail. So even if it has like an inch of flex or half an inch of flex at 200 meters, that point of aim, point of impact is going to be off now. And you can negate flex through just like the design of the rail, like the cuts that you're making, how much material you're taking away, things like that. And then also the barrel nut plays such a large role in that, and how that barrel nut is interfacing with that handguard to act as that support in that brace. And those are all considerations that we take for everything. Like, you know, I'm in a unique position where, yeah, I have this like manufacturing experience, and that's what my main focus is. But, you know, I Marine Corps infantry grunt, like, you know, combat veteran, all these things. I know what firearms are needed, like what aspects of firearms you want to focus on in terms of like making it the most effective tool for the intent that it was designed for.
Fantastic. Let me ask you this, and if any of these questions are off limits, you can say pass. That's okay. But what's something about you or your company that nobody may know that you'd like to share? Or a little known idea or fact.
I don't know, man. I'm pretty transparent. I don't try to like, there's no like hidden things. Something that, I don't know, man. That's a tough question. Can I come back to it? Let me think about it for a bit.
Yeah. And some people, when asked things like that, they get a little silly, which doesn't bother me a bit. They'll be like, well, actually, just so you know, I'm a very talented shower singer, you know? So, you know, it's kind of funny. You may have heard of him. I'm sure you probably know John Tegan, kind of famous for Benghazi and whatever else, that kind of stuff. He spoke with IFC before, and he was on a Warrior Wednesday not that long ago. And we made jokes about that, about how I was a shower singer, and he said something the same, and then immediately said, oh, by the way, I just put out an album. I'm like, what? You know, the guy put out an album, and honest to goodness, it's not too bad. I did have from a door kicker from way back, putting out some tremendous music, but he did a really nice job. It was kind of fun.
I mean, everyone's got their own talents. We are trying to think of something interesting like that. We're, you know, I definitely think, you know, we named it for two grunts for a reason too. Like, to us, being a grunt's like a mentality. It's not just firearms, man. It's about just being self-sufficient. You know, when these Marine Corps infantry units were deploying in GWAT, Iraq, and Afghanistan, like, we would get punched out to these outposts. Dude, we're building our own everything. You know what I mean? Like, we're responsible for everything on that. We don't have support. Like, they're not sending pogues, is what we call them, support units. They're not sending pogues to us, man. So, like, you know, we needed guys who were efficient, like being an electrician for, and our generators would go down, all these things. So I would just say, like, something that people should consider when they're thinking of two grunts is, like, you know, every rifle and every engineering decision is purpose driven. You know, there is an intent behind it, and that intent is that grunt mindset of, hey, like, you're kind of on your own. This is obviously you're going to have like your family and your community, but like, you should consider your community on your own, and you should be as sufficient as possible, not just in firearms and everything. Like, I spend most of my time for like training, like working on field craft and things like that, because I think it's so important to be able to sustain yourself out there.
All right, then. What else don't we know that we need to cover? Because, to be honest with you, we've had a pretty deep dive into the philosophy.
I feel like I haven't, conveyed enough, like, about what differentiates us.
Well, then tell us.
What differentiates us is every single decision is made with the intent of having a service rifle, tens and tens and tens of thousands of rounds, without spending that $4,000. And I'm sure like I've said that in a long way before in this interview, but I want to put that out there. There's plenty of good rifles out there in this country. If I didn't have a 2 Grunts rifle, I would go and have to go spend $4 or $5 grand though for something that I would want. Something that I know was engineered with that intent purpose behind it.
Well, knowing that these things separate you is important. Now, give us the context. When you say thousands and thousands of thousands, some of these people listening haven't shot that much.
And that's why
thinking about that.
Right. And I think I said it in the beginning, like, I know people hear that, especially at trade shows. I say that, you know, they'll be like, well, I'm never going to shoot that much. Like, your rifle's not for me. You know, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, your organizations like you exist for a reason, because our rights are under attack constantly in this country. And, you know, I think the more we get deeper into this 21st century, the more control and, I'm trying to think of the right word, control and just influence the government wants to have over like your day to day. I mean, I remember growing up, the federal government matter, man. You know, what happened in DC didn't really affect you here. Like, you could ignore that completely and focus on your local politics and everything was going to be fine. That's not the case anymore. And so what I worry about is just not being able to make these parts myself and not being able to source these parts. And that's why these rifles are engineered with that intent behind them. Because if you have these rifles, you can still use them and not be too concerned about where and is this thing going to still be good for me in 5 years, 10 years?
Okay, so just for round numbers, if you buy, let's call it a very budget or bargain oriented rifle that you can buy off the East Coast and have sent to your local dealer, right? You could expect to have, I don't know, 5 or maybe 8,000 rounds without trouble, maybe 2,000, I don't know, but it shouldn't be wore out by then. So I'm not real sure about how I would categorize that, but compared to what's reasonable, free of abuse, what's reasonable with something like yours? Well, how much longevity could you see before it might need armoring and
I mean, I'll tell you right now, like our barrels, you know, we use a high carbon content chrome moly alloy, and we nitride it. You know, you'll get 12 or 15,000 rounds of 1.5 MOA before accuracy degradation. You can get our gun stub MOA with hand loads and match grade ammo. So that's the barrel light, and then you'll get another like 10-15,000 rounds of usable accuracy, up to 2 to 3 MOA is what I call it, out of our barrels. Our bolt systems, I mean, that's TBD, man. I've got like 50 something thousand rounds of my bolt system right now, and I've only changed gas rings and extractor springs. Our buffers, even our buffers, man, like I engineered them and made them out of a specific alloy. I've seen a buffer fail in the Marine Corps in the field before. That's because you have a piece of steel, that carrier, bolt carrier, pushing and slamming against that buffer tens and tens and tens of thousands of times. Well, like we were talking about earlier, aluminum versus steel, who's going to win that round eventually? Yeah. So what we do is just solid stainless steel buffer. You know, everything's mil spec. Any of my parts will fit in another gun. Anyone else's parts will fit in my gun. But we just take a solid piece of solid stainless, bore it, ream it, machine it into a buffer part shape. And that's my buffer. And I did that for a specific reason of I don't want steel on aluminum contact anywhere in my gun for that reason. Same with you know, our gas systems, like, you know, majority of the gas systems out there are all stainless steel. It took us a long time to find a shop that was willing to make tubes and bend them for us, because there's not a lot of companies with benders.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're all set up to bend stainless, not 4140. But I wanted to get that 4140 heat treated steel out there because I don't want stainless steel having anything to do with my heat and gas mitigation. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's the right alloy for those uses.
Well, that's a pretty high round count. I mean, sometimes when people come in here and they're like, well, where's your ejection pattern on this rifle when you're done? I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't care. Like, what do you mean? And so I'm like, well, that's internet lore. And as far as I'm concerned, net rangers and keyboard commandos, I don't care where my ejection pattern is as long as it's consistent. Well, are you overgassing? Well, sure, I'm overgassing. because I want it to go bang, not click, number one. And number two, I don't know whether you're going to run can on, can off. I don't know if you're going to run cheap ammo steel stuff that doesn't like to seal against the chamber very well and has some leakage, or whether you're running hot stuff. I don't know if you've got some access to some of the good military stuff that isn't supposed to be out there. I don't know any of those things. I just need it to run all the time. And oh, by the way, if the unintended consequence of being over gas is if it chews up a buffer, when you actually do destroy it after 12,000 rounds, come to my place and I'll hand you another $8 buffer and you can leave with it. You know, I'm quite willing to do that. So I don't concern myself with some of these things that have become, have manifested themselves as sticking points with gun culture. Because I'm not interested in things that aren't necessarily the heart of the matter. You know what I mean? And it sounds like that's essentially your business philosophy, which I like.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's, everything, like I said, is done with intent and a purpose. Gas, I think ejection is important. I want all my guns ejecting 3 o'clock unsuppressed, because that means that my gas port and my buffer and my bolt are all working in synchronicity, in sync together, as one cohesive unit. So like 3 o'clock is like the perfect gas pattern, right? That means everything is balanced and working well. The bolt carrier system, the bolt's not moving too fast. You're not getting too much gas into the system where you're kind of risking blowing parts like you talked about. So stuff like that. But like you said, I'd much rather have an over gas gun. I shot Daniel Defense forever. For that reason, because I knew that this guy was making rifles that were meant to work under various conditions, Yeah.
Well, I should add a little context there. You're offering, well, what is it, a wild chamber? So you're running 5.56, 223, whatever in it.
Whatever. I shoot 5.56, but yeah.
But what I'm talking about is when people come in and commission a gun, sometimes it'll be a 204 Ruger or a 5.56 or a 450 Bushmaster or a 22 ARC, a 6.5 Grendel. I mean, everything that you can think of comes through here at some point. And so do I care about whether each one of these is a 3 o'clock weapon to weapon chambering? I do not.
As long as and dude, the thing with like the AR platform, like I don't think I'll ever make a AR that doesn't use the M4 bolt, like the actual bolt itself. Because like the AR is such a special platform because it's accurate, it's reliable, and the speeds that bolt and everything inside is moving from shot to shot is like almost ear comprehensible. And the second you start messing with the diameter of that bolt and changing the dimensions of it via widening the circumference of the bolt face to fit a larger casing, things like that. You're fighting physics at that point. It's not going to behave. It's not going to operate the same exact way as that M4 bolt. And that's why AR-10s are notorious for malfunctions and things like that. You got to go spend a lot of money on a good AR-10 because there's a ton of like R&D and things that go into it, making sure that it works as a reliable firearm. With that said, obviously most guys are not going to run a 308 gas gun or a 6.5 Creedmoor gas gun like an M4. They're not going to drive it like that. They're not going to do bag dumps and things like that. But I just think I always worry just about I think reliability is one of the most or the biggest concern what a rifle manufacturer should have, because you don't know if your end user is picking that up and pulling that trigger to defend them or someone else's life, or they're just at the range.
I agree. I'm right there with you. What else have we not covered that we need to touch on? Because the reality is we could probably go as long as we wanted, but I wanted to have people understand who Two Grunts Inc. is, where you are, what you're doing, what sets you apart. Because just for everybody's understanding, we weren't aware of you guys until Billy and the team from Iowa Firearms Coalition were in NRAM and ran into you. And he called me up and said, listen, I just had a conversation with Matt, and we looked at some of these things. He's like, this is something we absolutely have to get on Warrior Wednesday. We had a tremendous conversation. So I'm like, these are the things that I like doing the most, especially when there's a personal understanding and relate here. But I want to be able to share that with people. So this relationship has started off over a chance meeting, but I sense that we have more work that we can do together. You're obviously supporting Second Amendment organizations that support the people with them as the beneficiaries, not ourselves. And you're out there saying, I build this fantastic thing I'm very proud of, and I put a lot of time and energy into making sure that this exceeds your expectations. Now come and buy it. We ought to be working together a lot.
Yeah. And like, yeah, we're out of Michigan. We're a Midwest company. Everything's US made from the forge to like, I'm very particular about what forges I'll even work with. If I even hear a rumor that they're getting a precursor from overseas, I won't want to work with them. During my like journeyman training to join the union, we had they would have us like cutting Chinese steel, Chinese aluminum versus American. Like there's a big difference in the quality of products coming out. Just even talking about just raw stock, like from the forge, not even the parts, so everything's Midwest based here. All of our shops that I work with are Midwest based. There's one that's not, but it's Kentucky, which I consider Midwest and Southern at the same time. So I'll give them a pass. But I really like Kentucky. Yeah, man, like we're 100% veteran owned. Me and my brother are both 0311 veterans. We're 100% US made, from the engineering that happens in my shop on my computers here to the forges to the machine shops. Everything's here. We'll never do anything outside of the US. The one thing I hate most about these trade shows, man, is the amount of foreigners who come up to you trying to get you to go with them because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that can kind of show you, man, like SHOT Show is full of people who are not American companies trying to get you to have them make their parts. And there's a reason why they're there every year, why there's more and more every single year, right? Because people are using them. That won't be us for sure. Like I said, I'm not really motivated. Obviously, I want my company to do well and all these things to take care of my family. But like the big motivating factor is just getting as many hard use service rifles in the hands of Americans as possible before that's not an option anymore. I think it's really important that for guys to have rifles that are built with the intent that they were made for. We do grind tests where, I'll shoot 2,000 rounds unsuppressed just to see what kind of malfunctions I'm going to, see. And the only time I've ever had malfunctions was when, I didn't clean my gun, and being a Marine, dude, that's a big deal for me. I got to clean my rifles at all times. I didn't clean it for like 2,000 rounds, just shot suppressed with a back pressure can on a fixed gas block, not even an adjustable gas block. I only saw malfunctions at like the 1,700, 1,800 round mark. And that was just because my chamber was so hot because I decided to shoot 800 rounds that day that I was getting expanded casings over and over and over again because it was just steaming hot. I know you talked about it briefly with like your bore scope. Another thing that I just want to get out there, like if you're into chrome lining, you think I'm an idiot about nitriding, you could probably attest to this. Your chrome lining is going to degrade unevenly just based off the laws of the universe. The throat of that chamber is the hottest and most pressure that it's going to see. It's going to wear there first before it wears down at the end of the barrel. And most companies aren't even going to aren't going to do chamber to muzzle chrome lining, man. They'll do like half the barrel, right? Because that's where most of the heat and pressure is, right before that gas port. You're going to have it where it's wearing unevenly. Okay, now if my chrome's wearing unevenly, I have an uneven circumference for my bullet to travel through in that bore. I think, like I said, when I was talking about mechanical accuracy and stacking it, you're trying to stack as many possibilities of success on top of each other to get each shot to have the most success that it can, or have the best chance for success that it can. All of our barrels are government profile, what you would consider a medium profile. Like I'll never make a pencil barrel. That's not a combat rifle. That's not a service rifle. You need that extra material for that heat to have somewhere to go into, Same thing with handguards. Like I'll walk around gun shows and stuff and look at other people's rifles, and I can see who knows what they're doing and who doesn't just based off their handguard. If they're just cutting away a ton of material because they think it looks cool and they want to get as much cooling on it, that's great. But now you're going to have flex issues like we talked about earlier. I think there's a lot of guys out there who take advice from the wrong people, man.
Yeah, I think that's especially true. Now, there may be room for some discussion or pushback on a couple of the things you said based on what you want to do or how you want to do it. But if we move past that pretty quick, because you quantified what you said by saying, hey, this is a service rifle. And so that should tell people what it is. You're not saying that this is something you could, but you may not want to choose this for a field of prairie dogs. I don't know, but you certainly could. But for a service rifle, that's one thing. When I look on your site, I see, for lack of a better way of explaining it, a naked rifle, right? So with a service rifle, with that intended customer, with that intended potential outcome, do you have any suggestions on how you'd like to see it equipped? And I ask that as a loaded question because I've got some things I might want to throw in here, but I want to ask you that first.
I think it depends. That's why I love the platform so much, because it can be built out to a variety of different roles, optic choices and different things that you do in terms of maximizing that platform. I use my rifles to hunt whitetail, to hunt hog, to hunt prairie dog, to hunt coyote, to hunt everything, man. I shoot groundhogs all the time on my property because I hate them. We have the 14.5 for a specific reason, because it's cut down enough where even with a can, you collapse the stock. CQB and mount is not an impossible or daunting or frustrating task. While at the same time, you can still make shots out to 600 meters and have like decent terminal ballistics on it. That's why we do that. What do I want to see guys do? I don't care how people set up their rifles. If you're efficient, then that's awesome, man. I have 4 rifles ready to go at all times, and each one has a different setup and a different role. I've got a DMR with bipods and a 2-20 scope on it, and I only shoot Mark 2.62 out of it because that's my DMR gun, man. That's my rifle that, hey, I need to go out and touch someone right now. I have 2 just like, one's an EOTech and the other's an ACOG, and those are my guns that I shoot the most, and they're set up with lights and lasers and all that crap on it for a specific role, because these are my fighting rifles, man. This is what I would be grabbing if I had to. And then I have cheap, I've got like a light version with a little MRO on top of it to give to my wife when I take her, to give to a friend who doesn't know what he's doing and stuff like that. So to answer your question, I would like to see guys just using my guns. And when you said like, oh, it might not be best for prairie dog, I think everyone should have one rifle and should shoot that rifle for a variety of roles, because that's the best way to get really efficient with that rifle. Like, I know my guns through and through because I shoot them so much. If I didn't shoot them that much, I wouldn't understand little things like where's the wall on my trigger when I'm trying to take these like long thought out shots at distance or things like that, or I know that the BDC on this optic, for my ACOG, I can use the BDC, but for my EOTech, I have to, have my own BDC in my head. I'm only going to figure that out by using that rifle, man, and shooting it and getting these hits. I take my guns every year. Oh, I try to go every year. I don't know if they're going to do it this year. The guys at Precore, which is one of the best training companies, I think, in the country. It's Mike Olivia and Fred Baker, very experienced guys. They really know what they're doing, but they have a distance carbine course where they want you to bring an SBR and to bring a red dot, right? And we're making shots out to 800 meters. I think it's important for people to understand what these platforms are capable of.
Well, it's kind of interesting that we're talking about setups and ways to equip a rifle, but you're making the point, go out and use it so that you're confident and efficient with it. But I asked that specifically for something that wasn't anything that we've touched on, but I'm writing an article right now for Brownells that I don't have finished yet, because I made the comment to some of the people on I don't know what you call it, like a customer focus team. And I'm like, do you have any idea how many weapons, long guns, how many long guns come in my shop that don't have any sling attachment or sling on them whatsoever? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, as the world's largest purveyor of quality items for firearms, especially AR-15s and the like, I said, everybody that comes to you and builds this wish list gun, if they're going to do that, or whether they're going to source them and take them to a gun mill and say, okay, you put it together, whatever it may be, I said, you should be selling a sling every time a barrel goes out the door, because they need to be together. And I'm like, and I don't think that you are. I mean, I'll be shocked if I find out you tell me that's true, because these guns are coming in here and it's proof that people aren't actually using them. They may be going to the range from time to time on warm 70-degree days with overcast skies and not a lot of wind. But are they out there actually using more? Because I guarantee you, if you're going to walk around for about 4 hours with an AR-15 without a sling, you're going to be tired and sorry.
Yeah, good luck, man.
So, so I see these come in here, and now I'm critical. I'm like, do you use a sling and all this weapon? No, I one of these days I'll get one. I'm like, no, man, you need to really think about what that is, where you're going to attach it, how you're going to attach it, how you're going to use it, because this is really, really important. So
you have to use your gear to get accustomed to it. The only way you're going to know what works, what needs to be changed, what needs to be moved is by using it. You could set up your rifle and be like, yeah, this looks good. Well, it might not be. You won't know until you get those rounds on through it. That's why we encourage our customers with the lifetime warranty to use our rifles. You should be shooting a ton, and I hope in a few years to have barrels coming in that I have to swap out, because that means someone shot it out. That's good. That's what I want.
Yeah. I agree.
And as far as maybe down the road when we have some more capital, that's a good idea to find a nice 2-point sling that's not crazy expensive that we could include in the bag to encourage people to use the gun. I think there's a lot of guys out there who have a nice setup, and they might go to the range once or twice a year, a couple hundred rounds, and they think that's good to go. This is such a perishable skill, man. I don't shoot pistol nearly as often as I would like to, and I know I'm not as good as I was when I was a cop shooting pistol once a week, because I'm not putting the rounds, I'm not putting that trigger time behind it.
It's the way it is. I want people to go out and shoot. I want them to be practiced. The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia. Well, well-regulated means well-practiced, and that's responsibility.
Yeah, well-equipped, well-practiced.
Yeah.
I don't know. I obviously being from Chicago, there's a ton of liberal influence, and the people who always bring up the well-regulated militia part. I'm just like, all right, then let me start a militia. I'm gonna go to prison. You know what I mean? So you're going to focus on that one part about the Second Amendment and say, well, that's why it doesn't apply. Okay, well, I'll make it apply then. Let me go stand up a militia for my area and train with these guys and do all that. But if I started doing that, I guarantee you, man, I'm going to have problems.
Yeah. So that's possible. You never know. But it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what those words mean. But we're back to, go out.
There's states making laws that you can't train with more than 2 or 3 guys wearing tactical gear and stuff like that.
Jeez.
I think Virginia was one of them. I remember reading about these a couple of years ago and being like, this is insane, man.
All right. Make it quick.
Well, that's why you guys exist, man. And that's why we support guys like your groups like you, because it is really important, man. If we're not defending this right, it's gonna go away. I promise. Just look at the
relentless.
Huh?
The other side's relentless, Matt. They don't back off.
Dude, Michael Bloomberg is spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year funding these lawsuits to get everything banned. There's a big problem when guys who are protected by dudes with AR-15s are trying to tell you you don't need one. Any governor who signs an AR-15 ban should ban it for law enforcement in their state as well then. Because if a citizen can't have it, then why is the citizen's police going to have it? That's how I feel about it, But do I think J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom and this woman in Virginia, do I think their state troopers who are on their security detail don't have ARs in their trucks? Of course not. I know they do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Me and you could go on about where we think the country's headed, I'm sure, for another hour if we wanted. I've definitely, as a father of young kids, I've got a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old, and we're probably done. I definitely worry about the future they are going to live in, the country they're going to live in. But at the same time, I take solace in the fact, and one, we already won. Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins, and he defeated death, and we're all going to be reunited with him in heaven. So in that sense, we already won. So I'm not too concerned. But in the other sense, as long as I'm teaching them the principles and the skills and things that I think are important in terms of like self-autonomy, self-reliance, and um, being able to kind of be on your own, I'm not too concerned. And a good firearm is a big part of that equation, right? It's a tool like a mechanical accuracy stack. You have to have your self-autonomy stack, and firearms are just tools that are part of that stack. And having a service rifle that is designed for that intent and purpose, I think, is an important thing to have.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you touched on a savior and how this thing works and why. Well, at that point, you're asking yourself, well, where do I get meaning and purpose in life? Well, I get meaning and purpose in life in that. And I sense that you do too. But there's a lot of us out there who haven't thought about that and aren't getting meaning and purpose in life in those ways. And they may not have meaning and purpose in life in any way. So it matters. And when you have meaning and purpose, you add tools to your toolbox and you know how to use them. Because what good is tools in your toolbox if you don't have any idea what they do or how they're utilized? This is part of it. These are components that are foundational to, I would say, probably good living or a lending itself to better living. That's not a guarantee, but
be a good neighbor. Treat everyone with respect until they give you a reason not to. Be a leader in your community. I live in a small town and my kids are in school and stuff, and I encourage dads to come out with me when I go shooting. I go, you're in the range once or twice a week. Come with me, man. I'll teach you whatever you need to learn, man. I'll give you the best price on my rifles that you could find. I promise you that. Like, and guys just don't want to take that responsibility. Like you said, purpose and meaning. I think people's purpose is very misconstrued right now.
It's getting worse. And I mean, we could probably nitpick, maybe not even nitpick. We could probably look hard at Western culture. And I often define that as pretty much anywhere from Western Europe all the way through North America.
Yeah, of course. Western civilization, man. We built the world.
Western culture is on the slide. And some people might make an argument, which I don't think I'd give much pushback for, that's on the terminal skids. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar, if you've got time and you want to research it, but if you're sitting around with nothing to do at some point, then you might look into. Oh man, I forgot his name. I'll think of it. But there's a historian that I've mentioned from time to time that has looked at 20-ish, 2021 identifiable monster overarching cultures in recorded history. And he has basically said these 5 or 6 components are present in every one of these cultures when they went over the tipping point and eroded and went into nothing. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether it's the Ming Dynasty, Babylon, whatever else. So he was looking at those things like that. And the reality is Arthur Toynbee, actually, I think is Toynbee. But if you look at that, you'll see that Western culture is checking all of those magical 6 boxes.
Yeah, I think God chose a specific moment in time to reveal himself as the Messiah, right? And I think he chose that time because the Roman Empire was at its peak, right? And a lot of people are like, well, the Roman Empire died. I think the Roman Empire just kind of transformed into Western civilization as it is now, right? Christendom is the successor of the Roman Empire, and Christendom and Western civilization. I would say the average human in America and Western Europe has a pretty good quality of life right now, standard of living. That was, unheard of for 99% of humanity's existence in history. And you can all relate that directly to Christianity, man. So yeah, when we start to kind of push ourselves away from God as a society, as a culture, as a whole, there's going to be repercussions for that because that culture was built on that foundation that is God, that is Jesus,
Yeah. I've had this argument with people who are not either religious or Christian in any way. They're like, they'll ask me, Michael, are you saying that Christianity is the only way to live? And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that, but I am telling you that I can make a convincing case that it's the best. And I think
history, I'm a big history buff. I think history would prove that to be true. You know, and it's the same with the Americans who are like, well, I don't really see why anyone needs a gun. Well, I'm glad that you've lived such a privileged life where you don't see that as a necessity. I really am glad. I'm happy for that. You're so blessed that we live in a country where half the people can have that mindset. That's just not the case for the majority of humans. That's not the human existence. There's a reason why every single house in Iraq had an AK-47 because you need a rifle. You need these tools to defend yourself and your family. And we're lucky to live in a society where you think that that's not a necessity. But unfortunately, like for those of us who live in reality, we understand the purpose of them and the trying to think of the right word, the utility of those tools.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. So wrapping up here, Matt Patruno from Two Grunts Inc. We're no longer allowed to mention websites on our streaming or type them in their way. But if people go out there and they type in their browsers, Two Grunts and then INC for Inc., I'm confident that you will land in the right place in the right way.
Yeah, that will definitely bring you right to us for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
So Matt, is there anything in parting that you want to impart on us before we go?
You know, you're in charge of yourself. That's it.
I agree.
Know, obviously give piety and praise to the Lord our God, our creator, but he gave us free will for a reason and you're in charge of it. So
yeah, use it wisely.
Yep.
All right. Matt Patruno from Two Grunts Inc. Michael Ware with IFC signing off. I appreciate it. Go out there and patronize these businesses, guys. Matt took time to talk with you about what sets his product apart and why. You'd be inherently wise to go check it out. It's a good website. It's very informational, and you can see how that works. And oh, by the way, we might be able to work out a trusted partner deal with Two.
Yeah, we're gonna work that out right now, probably.
I'm feeling pretty good about that. So again, thank you, everybody. Matt, appreciate your time today.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, everyone. God bless.